A lot of life is about understanding the context. So now let's talk about the myth of normal. What is the idea of normal? If I said to Jack, act normal, what does that really mean? I guess some people look at normal like trying to fit every color into a single crayon box. Sure, it's neat and tidy, but it leaves no room for all the vibrant shades that don't fit the mold. And in this sense, what a lot of people say when they say normal, there is a connotation that what they're really saying is, can you be neurotypical? And anyone falling outside of being neurotypical, well, they are treated unfavorably. And it's quite interesting, actually, if someone does talk about normal, it can be quite an irritating question, but it's a philosophically relevant question to say to someone, tell me, what do you define as normal? Tired of misunderstandings? Embrace your neurodivergent self. This is going to be another great video, and before we begin, let me just give you the preface that I give you in every single video. So, I was diagnosed with dyspraxia at university, and there is also a strong suspicion of autism. So with that being said, let's talk about embracing your neurodivergent self, and let's start off with a mirror metaphor. So have you ever felt like you're looking to a mirror that just doesn't reflect you? So you stare, trying to recognize yourself, but what looks back, it's distorted. It's like the image is filtered through everyone else's expectations. And you're completely smudged by comments like, why can't you just focus? Or you're overreacting again. And after enough time, or after a significant period of time, you start to wonder, or you start wondering, is this really me? Or just who the world wants me to be? And if you're nodding to this right now, I've got something to say that I hope you'll hear, because in one sense, or in a major sense, you're not broken, you're just looking into the wrong mirror. So let's talk about what it really means. What does it really mean to embrace your neurodivergent self? So now let's talk about being misunderstood as opposed to being malfunctioning. Or I should maybe characterize this in a more clearer way, being misunderstood, but you're not malfunctioning. So it's perspectively different. So living with a neurodivergent brain in a neurotypical world can feel like being tuned to the wrong radio frequency. Jack, our regular fictional character, is on a different frequency to Sally because Jack is neurodivergent and Sally is neurotypical. Let me explain. So it's like you're broadcasting loud and clear, but no one seems to pick up the signals. They ask questions like, why do you take things so literally? Why are you always fidgeting? Why can't you just sit still and focus like everyone else? But it's not that you can't, it's that your brain plays a different soundtrack. The tempo's unique, the rhythm is unconventional, but it's music all the same. And yet because your melody doesn't match the mainstream, people treat it like a noise. But it's not a noise, it's a symphony. They just haven't learned to hear. And think of it like this, a noise is random, but a symphony, well, that's different, because a symphony is it's a beautiful piece of music. And neurodiversity can be beautiful like a symphony if properly understood. And I say this a lot of life is about understanding the context. So now let's talk about the myth of normal. What is the idea of normal? If I said to Jack, act normal, what does that really mean? I guess some people look at normal like trying to fit every color into a single crayon box. Sure, it's neat and tidy, but it leaves no room for all the vibrant shades that don't fit the mold. And in this sense, what a lot of people say when they say normal, there is a connotation that what they're really saying is, can you be neurotypical? And anyone falling outside of being neurotypical, well, they are treated unfavorably. And it's quite interesting, actually, if someone does talk about normal, it can be quite an irritating question, but it's a philosophically it's a philosophically relevant question to say to someone, tell me, what do you define as normal? So neurodivergence isn't a glitch. So it isn't a glitch, it's a variation. And of course, there's a distinction between a glitch and a variation. In one sense, you can see it as a beautifully complex blueprint, and I really do like that language. So for example, if you have some forms of neurodivergence, you might hyper-focus on something for hours and forget to eat, or feel everything in a room before anyone even speaks. You might organize your thoughts in pictures and patterns or non-linear bursts of brilliance. That's not wrong. That's not someone who's broken. That's just you. And yet people act like the goal is to blend in, to fix what doesn't match the majority. But you weren't born to blend in. You were born to be vivid. And just to clarify, and there's a few clarifying points here, to a certain extent, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, we do have to adapt. We do have to adapt. But again, it's about the context. And if you're a visual thinker, you should embrace being a visual thinker. So I'm not saying that because you're neurodivergent, you shouldn't adapt. That's not the message. The message here is really for you to understand yourself and for people to accept it. And that's a clear example, being a visual thinker. Maybe you're unable to, or you struggle with comprehension when it comes to reading. So from your perspective, being a visual thinker, assuming you are a visual thinker, it would be more precise, or it would improve your comprehension to absorb that information through some type of visual media, whether it's a documentary, a YouTube video, etc. So what I'm talking about is understanding and acceptance, which is multifaceted. Acceptance of yourself and acceptance from other neurotypical people, acceptance from institutions, cultural acceptance, etc. So here it's about stop shrinking and to start expanding. Let me explain. So many neurodivergent folks are taught to shrink themselves. That language might not be used, but again, it's the whole thing about being encouraged to blend in, learn to have a mask, which means to hide your true self, to zone out the overwhelm of life. And in this sense, a neurodivergent person can contort themselves into being quiet or acceptable, or versions of not who we are, just of a version that won't be judged negatively, or a version that won't be put into isolation. But masking is detrimental. Why can masking be detrimental? Because it can be like holding your breath in a room full of air. Eventually, you suffocate. And of course, there is context, because to a certain extent, we have to mask in certain situations. But to have that mask on all the time, that's really suffocating. And here's something to remember. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to move through the world in a way that makes sense to you, whether that means pacing while you talk, needing quiet recovery time, or expressing emotions in big, bold ways. Your authenticity isn't an inconvenience. Let me repeat that. Your authenticity isn't an inconvenience. It's a lighthouse. And someone else out there is searching for that beam of honesty so they can feel less alone. So in embracing the full spectrum, there's a certain magic in embracing all parts of yourself that used to feel too much. The sensitivity that lets you pick up on subtle shifts in energy. That's emotional intelligence, the ability to hyper-focus until 3 a.m. That's a passion and depth that a lot of neurotypical people wouldn't be able to do. The constant need to move, to stim, to do something. That's your body keeping your mind regulated. Every trait you've been told to tone down probably exists for a reason. And of course, there's context. Neurodivergence isn't about being better or worse. It's about primarily being different and honoring that difference without shame. In a sense, you don't need to explain yourself to be worthy of understanding, and you don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of love. So let's go back to that mirror, the one that never quite reflected who you are. Maybe it's time to put it down and pick up a new one. And when I say a new one, I mean picking up a new mirror. Because one shaped by your truth, that's powerful. One that doesn't twist your reflection to fit inside someone else's frame. Because when you look in a mirror that's actually yours, clear, honest, and made with love, you don't just see a version of yourself that's acceptable. You see the real you, unfiltered, radiant, whole. Like I said, you see the real you, unfiltered, radiant, and whole. So here's the invitation. Stop chasing reflections that were never meant for you and start becoming the kind of mirror you needed to be all along. So if you want to see more videos on neurodivergence, click here or click here. And if you want to know about more of the things that we're up to, then check the links in the description box.